3 million years from Earth, the Red Dwarf podcast. Thanks for the memory. Its crew, Blake Braswell, a USA native, and Lee Malaby, his English co-host. Additional. As I continue this journey, my desire to eat spicy foods like Lister does has had disastrous effects on my toilet. On the upside, I'm currently the majority shareholder of Steel Wool and Ajax Cleaner. What's up, Smegheads, and welcome to Series 3, Episode 6 of Thanks for the Memory, a Red Dwarf podcast, where we rewatch every episode of the BBC comedy show Red Dwarf and discuss them. As always, here with me is my co-host, Lee.
Hey, and people don't know how true that joke actually is right now, isn't that right, Blake?
Oh, I hope you didn't notice, but we sat down to record the first time. I forgot to write my comedy line, and I went, good, you're first. And I scrolled and went, I know exactly what I'm writing about, because this has been the struggle of my morning. When last night I was watching the U.S. Women's Soccer League, the NWSL final, and I ordered a crap ton of spicy fried jalapeno stuff with cheese, and had some Pilsner, and I think I even looked at my wife and said, look at this. This looks like a proper Lister meal. And my stomach agreed this morning. Absolutely.
I said, if we ever get together somewhere where we have access to cooking facilities, we need to do a TikTok. We haven't got a TikTok actually, but an Instagram or whatever of you and I eating the state of the art sarnie, the fried egg chili chutney sandwich.
Oh my! In a heartbeat. Like, yeah. Oh my God! Yes.
It'll be amazing.
Yes. That done. And then a reaction video that's the 24 hours later.
I don't necessarily think people would want to see that, but okay, I'll be up for it.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Right, so let's get on with it. This episode today that we are talking about is the final episode of Series 3, and that is Episode 6, The Last Day, which originally aired in the UK on December 19th, 1989, as Blake said last week, or 2 weeks ago, the last episode of the 1980s.
Leaving it behind, bringing on the extreme 90s, baby.
The crew receive a message from Crichton's manufacturer saying that he must be dismantled within 24 hours, at which time a more advanced mechanoid will arrive to replace him. Lister, Cat, Rimmer and Holly decide to throw Crichton a leaving party and give him one last night to remember.
So the episode literally does start with that pod coming to the Red Dwarf. Yeah. And
feels like a Series 1 episode, Series 2, the Better Than Life. When Better Than Life started, it begins pretty much the same way.
Yeah, getting the mail pod, right? It's the same thing. So, it's funny. It's one of those things that we keep encountering where you because we watch this a couple times, you go, wait a minute, why would, and I love thinking, like, why would the new owners of Crichton be getting this? And then my thought is, Crichton, of course, what he would do is now that he is on the ship, he would go, oh, well, I need to register and change my registration with the company. And then you think, well, he would send some kind of thing, right? That would say he's now on the Red Dwarf, except he even says they've been looking for him for so long.
Thousands of years is what they actually say.
He says thousands, not millions, which is interesting because you asked about
the timeline.
What is Nova 5's timeline? Because the Red Dwarf crew does not have androids. So something I've never thought about before. Are these android? Is this android of Crichton? Is Crichton the future for Rimmer and Lister?
So potentially the Nova 5 is something that was created
2500, whatever.
Like 2 million years later or whatever.
Right.
Like it could be not 2 million. It could be 3 million years later. Right.
So I get this idea that everything is gone, even the Earth. I can't find.
Because no one thinks about this geeky like we do.
I know. It doesn't say. It's only I can find a thing that talks about this, the order of how they're shown, and that it takes place in the year 2077 prior to being launched 3 million years into the future, or waking up 3 million years. So I just get the idea. You feel like the Red Dwarf, if these androids existed, they would have been on the Red Dwarf, right? Like,
yeah.
So they're not. So, if Red Dwarf's 2077, Crichton could be, the androids could have been invented in 2177, whatever.
Yeah.
So how does the company, and I can even buy the idea that it's an AI setup off a moon of Jupiter where the base is, and it sends, I could totally buy that. How do they know?
They can't, right? We're just taking a massive leap now with Red Dwarf again. It's like, it doesn't matter, just go. It's a stupid comedy show. Stop looking into it too much.
I know, but it's definitely one that's like, I think it's partially because I could justify it. I could see Crichton being dumb from our point of view and registering himself with them and be like, why would you do that? If you had an expiration date, they're going to come after you for. Why? Well, it's protocol, sir. Because
he wants to go to Silicon Heaven as well.
Oh my God, so great. So great.
My favourite line is, "Surely you must believe that you're a pantheist." He's like, "I am a pantheist, but I'm not a frying pantheist."
That is the best line in the whole show. I absolutely wrote that down too. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Sure, you must believe that God is in all things. You're a pantheist. A frying pantheist is just
genius.
God, such a brilliant line.
It really is.
I did write this whole opening gag about God. That every time I watch that waffle, I want one so bad. It looks really good.
Yes.
The waffle that Crichton makes, the fresh strawberries, which fresh strawberries will come back in a future episode too. But one of my favorite episodes actually. Him coming and bringing the food and Lister. I love that we bring back the idea of Lister. Like, it's not a master servant. Be your own person, which is literally from the first appearance of Crichton has been a thing for Lister, that he wants Crichton to be his own man, as he says.
Yeah, that's true.
I love him chucking all the food into the trash and Lister's face like, why did I believe what I said, and it is important that he throws this away, but I really don't want him to.
Like, goodbye waffles, goodbye fresh cream, goodbye maple syrup, and he's just like drooling. If he was a dog, he would have drool pouring down the side of his face. And
him just eating that out of his hat is such a great throwback to gross Lister. Just it's so delightful. But I do love the opening gag about, hey, lay off, man. Like, this is a working man's game, boxing. Like, this is like, it's an art form. It's and you're
topless female boxing, sir.
Yeah, topless female boxing, sir. Like, so brilliant. Like, because he treats it so serious. Yeah, and you're like, yeah, lay off, Crichton. And then they're not even boxing. They're just sort of jumping up and down.
No, jiggling. Yeah. Who do you want to win? It's like, I don't really care. I just hope it goes the distance. Yeah,
it's such a cheesy, easy joke, but so good. I mean, it's just delightful. I always love whenever they're watching stuff like for the Flintstones from previous episodes and stuff like that, where they're just like, they must have watched everything on the ship that exists. And so what they do find to watch, I adore.
Yes. The porn in someone's under bed storage locker. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's what the closest they get to porn is female topless boxing.
So good.
Did you notice who the video announcer was for the Crichton recall?
Oh, yes. Mr. Robert Llewellyn himself.
Yes. I love that they get Robert Llewellyn to play himself, but the person that's recalling Crichton. I
was so upset. I missed him at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And I can't remember if it's that I missed him at it or if he had been there the year before, but he had this PowerPoint presentation stand-up show that he was known for. And he did a very, what would at the time have been a very corporate PowerPoint presentation and made fun of it. And it sounds brilliant. It's hard to explain, but I remember looking at his website and I was like, oh my God, I would have died to go see that. That looks so good. He's a brilliant creator though, too. If we ever delve down his road, because he does stuff like that. Like he is not just a performer, but he's also a creator himself. He's quite an interesting dude.
But it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that he's just because of Silicon Heaven, he's quite happy to accept that. That's just how it goes, sir.
Where would all the calculators go? The way he says that cracks me up.
And it's when he's like, Well, do you believe in human heaven? Oh, human heaven, sir. That's just something that was made up by people to stop them being scared of dying, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, to keep you all from going nuts. Yeah.
And I love Chris Barry again gets let loose in this with his impression of Crichton.
The fun, and the profitless and meaningful way. Yeah.
So good. So good.
He imitates him so well. Well, so I actually was going to say, right before, on that note, Chris Barry gives one of my favorite deliveries of his, which is better than most of us get. Most of us get, mind that bus, what bus, splat. It's he delivers it so flat. It's flipping delightful. But I love, he does one of those things again where he is weirdly sincere. And he's like, but those are his beliefs, Lister, and everybody's entitled to their beliefs. And even though it sets up the joke about his family being Seventh-day hoppists because of the misprint in the Bible they had saying you got to hop everywhere, he says a very sweet and beautiful thing, which is like, hey, when it comes to this stuff, you have to let it go, man, because people are entitled to their beliefs. So you have to be cool with that and let it go. And he did, and the way that he says he did that for his family, even though he didn't believe, is so cool. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, it's actually, if someone said that, if you were having a frustrating time with like a friend or a family member or whatever over there, like a religious system or whatever, as long as it wasn't like hurting people or whatever, and someone said that to you, you'd be like, you know what? Thanks. I think I needed to hear that. It's such an oddly real thing. I don't know. Did that strike you as when you heard it?
Not really, but I think you view these episodes from a very different lens than I do, with like a theatre background and stuff. I'm very much still just watching them as, for the most part, a stupid comedy from the 1980s.
I just love when like Rimmer has these like really sincere moments, which didn't really occur. Like, you would see he actually loves Lister in like that series 2 episode where he's got 2 of him, or series 1, whatever it was, where he's got 2 of him. The finale to series 1.
Series 1, yeah, me too.
And he comes in like, I'm just mad at the other guy. That's why I'm in here. But really, it's like, nah, you miss your buddy. Like, but now you're seeing like some sincere stuff, which I do genuinely love, because it does make, when he swings back to like, no, there he is. That's Rimmer. Yeah. It's which you have come to understand is a bit of a defense mechanism. The way that he is, it does make it absolutely brilliant.
Good, because I miss that. I wish you'd shut up about your smegging cat Bible. I miss that Rimmer at this point.
Well, and it's interesting watching the show right now. I do feel like this season 3 is, and you know what? I think that it almost makes me want to go back and watch Marooned before I start series 4, because I think it does make, I mean, that episode has some of that. You know what I mean? It's sincere, and then Rimmer gets real frustrated, and like, this is a turning point for the reality of the characters and the world that they inhibit,
that makes sense.
And again, we're probably way deeper than what they thought of at the time, but sometimes you look back and stuff and go, hey, did you plan this? You're like, no, but it kind of worked out this way, and that's how it feels, right?
A bit of trivia going back off what you were talking about with them being 13th Advent hoppists or whatever it was. So according to the trivia that Rimmer quotes, Corinthians 13:13 incorrectly. So according to his family, the greatest of these is hop. But the actual quote, now these 3 remain faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these being love, not hope, although the Bible he was quoting apparently was known for its errors.
Every time, first time he said that, I went, wait, that's still not right. Like, that's an incorrect, but it's incorrect twice.
But what it is that's where Tarantino got his inspiration for Ezekiel 25:17, because it's not, if his Ezekiel 25:17 isn't the exact quote from the Bible, and he went, well, if Red Dwarf can take a passage from the Bible and change it slightly to fit their narrative, I can do it for Pulp Fiction, so it's fine.
Yeah. I don't even think that's a thing that exists. I think he added I can't remember what it is, but like, yeah, I have to go back and look at it. But yeah, it's just a total like erroneous thing.
Yeah.
So Tarantino's a Red Dwarf fan, in case you guys didn't know.
That's what it seems that way, doesn't it?
This episode though, like delightful. I mean, this, as you said earlier in the previous episode, this does have a sci-fi bend. Obviously, it's dealing with androids, end of service and stuff, but it still feels
it's a family episode, isn't it? It's all focused on them as a group of people who have come to be together on this ship for an inordinate amount of time. And I've wrote down that it feels like Crichton's version of Queeg.
It does. And it's also, we get such a focus on Crichton, and this really, we've seen moments of it, but this episode pretty much settles what I call peak Crichton, which would be season series 4 through 6. But it sets this up, and this idea of like, maybe he could feel like he has control over his own destiny, as opposed to just being programmed to be the way that he is, you know?
Yeah.
Which is obviously what Lister wants out of it.
This is the first time I've watched these episodes since Crichton came in and actually looked at Robert Llewellyn's makeup and gone, it's actually really good.
It is. Yeah. It is quite good. Does it look good? No.
But it's not meant to.
Right. It's meant to look like he is the cheapest, I feel like.
Yeah.
He's what these guys find is they didn't get like sleek C-3PO. They got, they got the bargain bin is what was left on the Nova 5.
At the same place where Peterson got his Marilyn Monroe doll from.
Oh my God. Over on Titan? No. What did he say?
I think that's Callisto. Was it Callisto?
Callisto. Yes. That's right.
How big is that foot, by the way?
That foot's enormous. It's not even big enough for the Marilyn Monroe that shows up at the end. Like that foot
huge.
Is huge.
It's like, it took me 2 hours just to do this. And you're like, where's that foot from?
Right, it's getting like 10 feet tall when it's all said and done. But I do love the focus on Crichton. It's weird that it took this long to do it, considering they introduced him out of nowhere into the season.
Yes.
And just said, oh, by the way, Crichton's got a new personality, rebuilt him, he's back. Oh, by the way, Holly's changed too. I do feel like as we come to the end of this season, it is a shame, because we will get them, because I do quite like this Holly. I like them both for very different reasons. I
prefer Norman Lovett, but I do like Hedy Herring.
Yeah, but I will say he was given more to do in his first two seasons.
Yes.
And that's what I say. It's a shame. I love that Crichton finally gets a full one. I hate that she didn't get, I think her biggest thing is the opening one, the awooga, repeat, This is not a daffodil. And you see, and she gets stuff later where you're like, okay, finally, you guys are like, and to be fair, is it series 2 that's more friendly to Holly even than series 1 probably?
Yeah, I would say so.
When they figure out what they've got going on. So that makes a little sense, but but it's a shame.
But then you've already written the character. The character's there. It might be a new person playing that character, but the character's still there.
Well, that's the thing about her. I can see her, like you could dub her back into the original first 2 episodes, and while they would be different, I could see her delivering those lines. Do you know what I'm saying?
So we kind of mentioned this 2 episodes ago of I wondered whether when they wrote this version of Holly, whether they wrote it for Norman Lovett and just put her in, or whether they wrote it specifically for her. It would be so interesting to have seen this series done with Norman Lovett in, and then, like you've just said there, to see what the first 2 series would have looked like with her, with exactly the same lines, playing exactly the same role, but with her doing it, how different it would have looked.
And part of the problem, they were trying to fix, they have a solution, and it created a problem. They needed another person in the show, because we talked about series 2, they kept introducing a reason, an excuse to have another character show up.
Yeah.
Right? And Crichton is a perfect other person to have, kind of the opposite of Kat. Like, he overanalyzes and he notices everything. And the problem is he's an android, so in theory you could write him to kind of replace what Holly does.
Yeah, Holly's become the fifth wheel now, hasn't she, a little bit?
Yes, and I do think she gets more involved later. And in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like her and Crichton get a stronger relationship, which makes sense, right? Like,
yes, because it feels like we complained about Kat in series 1, where it's like they're there, but they're still not quite sure how to have him be part of the crew. And I think because Crichton's become such a part of the crew so quickly, that Holly's kind of took a back step a little bit, and now they're trying to find where her place in the crew is. Yeah,
and I will say, this episode does give her more. They decide, after Crichton is for sure going to do this, obviously they're going to throw the party. And her short scene where she's like explaining to Crichton how, like, oh, no, you can't have alcohol, but I made something for you. And she proceeds to get him drunk. Like, her whole conversations, like, oh no, humans can't have that. It's lethal to humans, probably lethal to androids, but I figured it didn't matter since tomorrow you're... That's such a... Because you can see Norman Lovett doing that too, right? Like,
yes.
It's weird how the personality is still absolutely there. You know what I mean, for Holly? But
she does delivered different.
Or she does a great... that whole scene is great, and that's the one that when I watched it the second go around, I went, man, I wish we got a little more of her in this series, because like that moment and the team kind of being together is it just feels good. And they will obviously figure out how to make that work as it goes. But it is interesting. Like, he provides a much needed relief to give another person to bounce off of. But at the same time, it does kind of make Holly's role a little redundant.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a shame, because Holly was, how much I adored Holly in series 1 and 2. And for them to now obviously change it with a different character, who I still do love, just not as much, and then them not be as big a part of it is definitely a bit of a kick in the teeth, really.
Right. Yeah. Well, but like, great delivery of things like, see, the thing about space, the general color of space, like, those deliveries are so good. You're like, man, you guys really should have done more of the series. But
like a wooga, abandoned ship.
Yeah.
Like, I still love that delivery.
It's coming. I mean, and it's coming. And this, I guess there's only so much time, but I do love the time spent with Crichton. The party is a blast. I love when he sees Marilyn Monroe, how he just like, that's a robot.
And they're all like, holy crap. Yeah. But again, I have to drag it down. It is another one of those weird stutters that I complained about a couple of episodes ago, when he drinks the android alcohol.
Wait.
It's so annoying.
You don't like, because I wrote down.
I like the way he does it, but then it's...
Can't complain about this one because it's actually good.
No, because he still does. They have the actual like film stutter, but then so it's like he goes die, and then he goes die. Like, it's him taking over, and they don't need to have him take over. Just do the stutter. Like,
see, I felt like he did a good job coming out of it, like it was slowing down.
Yeah, no, it still annoys me.
Oh, it's so funny. That's my note. Lee can't complain about it. This one's good.
Yes, I can. No, it still annoys me. Just have him do die, and then stop. I'm like, whoa, that was... It's the weird... no, it's odd.
That's hysterical. I love that. I love the presents. I love that Kat is like a 6-year-old. Give him my present. Give him my present. Give him my present. And an allusion to other things that will come. We already know... Rimmer's fascination, but that he's got patent sinus fluid that he purchased from someone but he said he purchased it for, or someone offered him, another collector, $1,000 pounds. What are
dollar pounds? Yeah.
What are
I'm
dollar
assuming
pounds?
In the future we only have one currency in the world, and we've just amalgamated dollars and pounds together, I guess.
I love that.
Look, see, I've commented this moving forward, more so in this series, that there's a lot of Americanisms crept into the dialogue before. And I'm wondering if, after series 2, it kind of took off in the US a little bit more, and so they wrote the script just to include, and it's not massive things, because I thought it was interesting, this one, I actually wrote it down when Rimmer's talking about lunch at our house was a nightmare, because hopping around trying to give everyone soup, we had to wear asbestos trousers and sou'westers. Do you know what a sou'wester is?
Oh, I mean to ask that. I don't know what the sou'wester is.
So it's basically a very, very long sort of fishing jacket, like a waterproof fishing jacket. You know those, if you ever see, I'm trying to think, like a big yellow plastic fishing jacket that comes down like past the knees.
Oh yeah, I mean I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen that. Yeah,
yeah, that's a sou'wester. It's like it's a southwester, but it's kind of like abbreviated, so it's a sou'wester. So I wonder so it's kind of two ways. It's how like the Firefly show, it would drop in Chinese terms as if the idea in this future, like China, like has such an influence. The same way we have a bunch of Spanish terms in America or whatever. Like that was kind of the idea. There's two ways. I was wondering if one, they just thought, these two countries eventually they're going to start saying things similarly. I mean, they even have an American captain on the Red Dwarf, even though most of the crew apparently is British. Like, is that part as the future goes? Is that what will happen? Or maybe,
or maybe it's a little of both, like you said, because as you're saying that, and I was just talking about Holly, I realized we're not getting any more Gordon Bennett's, or we're not getting as many
those like exclamations that were very British from Holly.
Steakhouse references.
Yeah, that's true. I've not noticed that. You're right. Yeah.
So a lot of that's dropped. I mean, there was a lot of you're probably right. I would say first two seasons, hey, it's written for British folks, and then it's like, well, we're getting a bit of an audience, so let's broaden this. I mean, you see that happen now. There were some very British references even in the relaunch of Doctor Who in 2009 that you don't see as much of anymore because it's an international audience now, Right,
yeah, I reckon it's that, because like you say, there's like charbroiled, like waffles. Waffles aren't, more so now, definitely not in the 80s. I don't remember ever having waffles as a kid.
Oh,
That's
really?
a very American thing to me.
Thought it was a Belgian
thing.
You
can get them, well, it is, but like for a breakfast, you're right, the Belgian waffle, but like as a breakfast thing, it's like even pancakes in the 80s, it wasn't a big thing. They're more something that we would associate with America rather than a British breakfast. I don't know. I mean, you've been to Hogsmeade in Islands of Adventure. Like that so-called British breakfast that they have in there. That if you have arguments with many British people about whether baked beans belong on a breakfast or not. I do love
a British breakfast though with baked beans and your sliced tomato. I like a Canadian version of it very well too, I should say. Okay. If you go to Canada, especially Montreal, the Canadian, I'm like, well, this is an English breakfast, right? It's just, I think it's just missing the white pudding and black pudding.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Now black pudding, we call it. An interesting thing that I'd never noticed. The Holly-isms definitely aren't there, and it has become less British. Because I questioned, when I was writing my notes down, I was thinking, in my head, in the last episode when Rimmer goes to see his younger self, that he'd asked Holly for a flashlight, and he doesn't, it's a torch in the end. But for some reason I had it in my head that he asked for a flashlight. He didn't. So it's an irrelevant statement at this point, but there's definitely some American terms that have crept in a little bit more, and those quintessentially British terms definitely aren't there like they were in series 1 and 2. And that has to have been a conscious decision.
Yeah, I would imagine so, like as it's going along in your, and also I would say, I just had a thought occur to me too. In the first series, particularly, and somewhat in the second series, this is a brand new show that people are catching for the first time, and you're leaning on a lot of past English references to get jokes in. But now, once you hit series 3, and then especially 4, 5, and 6, you your references can be the world in which you have created. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not now like new, so you've existed for a bit. You know, like you can. The Mandalorian can have a joke where they're like, hey, this guy's a really good crack shot. He used to be an Imperial. And the Mandalorian be like, oh, really? And the guy's like, I wasn't a stormtrooper, okay? And you're like, that works because that world, we're like, oh, yeah, that's kind of funny. We talk about how stormtroopers never shoot, anybody. But you can do that right now. So you can make jokes that are not self-referential, but like, you know how Crichton works as an android. So yada yada, you can make this joke that's funny, right, about it.
Yeah.
So it's probably a little bit of all those things, because it's probably easier to write these jokes just about the world of Red Dwarf as it exists.
Because it's funny, isn't it? When you go back to some of those early episodes, some of those jokes, so the whole Bernie in and then Teasy Weezy, like even we were like, when we delved into those, we're like, holy crap, like, who the hell knows what Teasy, like that is just the weirdest deep cut reference that I don't believe anyone would have got that joke when it was aired, even back in 1989.
No, absolutely not. So I would imagine there's definitely a little bit of like, there's a mix on that, and like you can go one way or the other. On one hand, it's a guaranteed joke for the crowd because they'll get these references, and now it's like, well, now we can just have fun with these characters. Now we can make a premise in series 4 that's all about how paranoid Lister or Rimmer is. Yeah. And we don't really need to reference anything else. You just know it's how he is. And here's the funny bit for the whole show, like.
And then like his whole joke of his first French kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I knew she fancied me, but I wasn't sure about the other one. I woke up in the middle of the night with a tongue down my throat, and it was Uncle Frank. And you know it's coming. And I'm sitting here watching going, this is one of those we wouldn't write nowadays, because he's talking about making out with his cousins, right? That would be... Oh, yeah. That would and his uncle in the end. Yeah, but it's something like the whole thing is like, this is... like, it's a joke. I never thought that, actually. That just doesn't... Right. You probably wouldn't. Someone would bring it in and be like, you know what? Let's leave that one at the writer's room table. We'll just... Maybe. Yeah, going back to the whole Lister losing his virginity on the 12th green at Bootle Municipal Golf Course at like 12 or whatever he was. Right. And then you have, and in this with Rimmer, like also, I love that it's just another example of he thought it was my mom. So yes, I will say, I hope that was his uncle on his dad's side then. Well, exactly. But then also like, so is it not like, or is it someone who just called uncle because he would show up? I love just this, like, yes, the implication of Rimmer's mom. The ambiguity of the statement that it could have been one of the family, or it could have just been some random guy who was a friend of the family. That, like, we all had that when you were younger, that you just called like really close friends of your mother and father's as like uncle, or auntie. Yeah. I mean, look, my daughter, that's Uncle Ferris. If you ever listen to her, like that, she doesn't. That's what she calls him. She'll say, I miss Uncle Ferris. I don't know if, was it this episode or the previous one where there's also the Rimmer makes the crack of like, well, you can have her, talking about his mom, everybody else has. Yeah. I think it was, well, what was, I'm trying to think what the actual joke was now. But it must be this one, because they're talking about, I never had a mum. And he's like, you can have mine, everybody else has. That's what it was. Yeah. I love it because we get these little glimpses. And again, I don't think they thought about it this hard, of where the group is moving forward psychologically. And Rimmer before wouldn't have said that. And now he's like, he respected his mother too much, and now he realizes what a slut she actually was. Right. And he knows that the crew knows, and it's weird. Yeah. You're like, it feels like somebody working through something, and there's no way they thought about that at the time. But it does. Maybe, but probably not. But it does feel that way, right? Now he just says it. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's true. I do love that whole scene, though. I love how when Crichton, he's like sad now, and the cat. And again, I always love when these characters have a weirdly sincere moment. I love how Cat is like, it's okay, buddy. You've gone through the happy time. Now, the downtime with drinking. And like, he's so sweet to Crichton. Yes.
at this moment. And I love it. Like, I do love when the show pauses for a second to be like, these guys have been through a lot.
Yep.
And they do love each other. And I think it's why the show works, you know, like, even though they despise so many things about each other, Kat clearly is Lister's his bud, and that's who he loves the most, but he still thinks he's the grossest thing to walk on two legs, you know?
But it goes back to what I said for my joke at the beginning of the last episode. The little thing that I coined for this series is the people are real. It's the situations that are ridiculous. And that's just because you hate somebody doesn't mean you don't care for them. That's family, isn't it? That is family a lot of the time, isn't it? They piss you off to no end, but you still care about them.
Does the term, you're getting a bit tetchy, mean anything to you? Do you know the scene I'm talking about?
I don't, but
no. Oh, God, there's a scene coming that epitomizes this so well amongst them that it's the most family, where the family finally starts telling each other how they feel moment.
Right.
I friggin' love it.
But they feel like the writing is very real. It feels like real people, that they would piss each other off having lived with each other for however long and been through what they've been through. But that doesn't mean they don't care about each other.
I did like the throwaway of we're in the officers' lounge. I'm not allowed to be here. I went, oh yeah, this does look very different than anywhere else they've hung out. And I do love that it's taken them basically 5 years or whatever it is we discovered to go, hey, we could live in the officers' quarters. We could use their stuff and not be stuck in.
We could actually be anywhere we wanted to aboard the ship at this point.
Because even by Rimmer's rules, he's the highest ranking official on the thing now. So so it's funny. It's a great excuse to create new sets that are better and just go, oh, well, here you go. Yeah, that's the officer stuff.
It was interesting. The whole drunken bit felt like going back to Thanks for the Memory, funnily enough, to quote our podcast title, where there are, the whole fried egg chili chutney sandwich when they're like, we're 3 million years from Earth, but I want to know where this traffic cone came from. And Kat's like, don't worry about the traffic cone. I want to know where this policeman's hat and suspenders came from. Yeah.
That whole bit is so great. It's just me.
Crichton hungover. How does Crichton get a hangover?
I love that. Dehydration, 99%. Like embarrassment, 2%. It's so good.
Oh no, recall from the night before, 2%. Embarrassment, 98%.
And how is Rimmer hungover with his head on the table? The hologram rules come and go.
Well, no, because I don't know. The hologram rules are weird, aren't they?
They are,
very
but
strange.
At this point now, it's just kind of fun and delightful.
But that's what I liked about this episode. It felt like a mix between Queeg and Thanks for the Memory, like things that they'd learned from those episodes that they kind of went, oh, I like the fact that they were all drunk in that episode, so we're going to pull that out of there. And we like the fact that they all thought that Holly was going to get decommissioned and we were going to get a new one in, so we're going to pull that with Crichton because that kind of works, and we're going to mash that together and come up with this episode. Well,
and then of course before they wake up, like the commercial inadvertently gets played for the new Android,
the Hudson 10.
Yeah, and I love the cheesy effect of the heat ray vision, and it cooks the chicken, and and then it's like super strong, and then he puts the brick down out of frame, unzips, crack, I guess implying that unlike Crichton, who, as Lister said, is he's like Action Man down there in that apartment, just smooth plastic underpants and a trademark symbol, that for whatever reason, this one is different.
I guess so, yeah. But that was the Hudson 10. I think I alluded to this when we recorded our polymorph episode. So the guy who plays Hudson 10, which is Gordon Kennedy, a Scottish actor, was also the voice of the warning message at the beginning of Polymorph.
I wish he'd have used that voice for this. The voice he uses in this is terrible.
It's awful, isn't it? He's done that. I'm going to kill you. And it's really bad.
So hard to hear and understand. Yeah. It's really, because it's so quiet. It's very rough, because there's some good jokes in there that they don't hit as well because it's hard to understand.
Yeah, it's a bit strange.
I do love when they're like, wait, so you don't just die, it's because you're programmed to kill yourself basically, and then or dismantle yourself, and if you don't, this android does it for you. Well, then screw that. We'll just tell them to bug off. And the kid's whole Is you do this though it profits you not at all? You'd save an android? Is this what they call friendship? And I love that. Don't give me this Star Trek crap. It's too early in the morning for that. And I love it because I think it's why I've referenced Star Trek so much in these last couple episodes talking, because it was in my head with this line, because it's an early Marvel movie joke before Marvel existed as movies, in the sense of like, there's this poignant thing that's said, but you can almost feel the like writer room be like, well, that's so Star Trek, but it is what they're doing. Well, we have to undercut it. And Lister is the perfect person to undercut it. But unlike some of the Marvel movie undercuttings, this feels in character for Lister, because you can almost feel like he is emotional and he is sappy as but he doesn't sit in it. You know what I mean? Like, he'll do sentimental things, but but he doesn't sit in them. And that's a perfect, don't give me the Star Trek crap. It's too early in the morning for this. Like, I love it. It's like a meta joke that totally works.
Yes,
for that moment. I
see we had Scutters back for this episode, and we find out that one of them's name's Bob for the first time.
Isn't that weird, Bob? And then I question whether we see them anymore. I mean, we've had like 3 appearances of Scutters. One that we discussed actually should have been a main quote unquote villain for the entire episode instead of how they did the episode. I really liked our repitched version, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Of what was the episode called? I'm losing it.
Body Swap.
Body Swap. I think our repitched version of that is good. It's a better version.
I completely agree. Yeah. It's weird how much the Scutters were such a huge part of series 1 and 2, and then they've just gone, no.
Well, especially again, as I mentioned, now that you have Crichton, not only have you eliminated some of what Holly could do, you've pretty much taken care of what the Scutters did.
Very true. Yeah.
The Scutters were basically there so that Rimmer had hands, for lack of a better
true.
term.
Yeah, they were. I never considered that, but you're right. Yes, they were.
But
they did anything he couldn't, and I suppose Crichton does the same now.
Yeah, although it's a shame because it's a very I don't know, it makes me think of K9 from Doctor Who. It's such a cheesy effect, and I would love, they do come back, but much, I think more so later.
Yeah.
I do love the like boys from the dwarf kind of moment of them lining up like, nope, like you're going to buzz off. We got, we have a bazookoid, and Lister has a shotgun, a sawed-off shotgun, which is
where did that come from?
Funny, because they used the bazookoids for the polymorph, but now there's a shotgun, and I think it's just, I don't know. It's so weird because why don't they both have bazookoids?
I think it's an alien reference. Or aliens reference. Because one of them, when they have to when they go down, they realize they're underneath the reactor, and Apone tells them to basically store all the weapons, flame units only. And then
what the hell are we supposed to use, man? Harsh language?
Harsh language, yeah. And one of them pulls out, I like to keep this for close encounters. And I think it's Michael Bean's character. I think it's a little nod to that.
Damn it, I know that movie too well.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a reference to that.
Well, it's clearly a reference to that and Terminator, right? That's kind of the...
Oh, yeah, true.
It's like James Cameron all over the place in this.
Yes,
It's both of those things, which Aliens was 86 and Terminator 2 hadn't come out yet. But Terminator 1
that was 92, but Terminator, the first one, will have been.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was like 84, 85. It was prior
Something
to Aliens.
Like that. It was early. Yeah, it was. Yes. Because it was one of the first James Cameron films, wasn't it? So it will have been.
But it isn't. I never thought about it till just now. Honestly, I'm like, oh, Lister's got a shotgun. That's never shown up before.
No, at all.
Although the ship is big enough that when stuff like that happens, I don't question it because you could just imagine they found something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although the bazookoids are so cheesy sci-fi, I love them more. But it's
a budget thing, isn't it?
Well,
I use the bazookoids as much as possible because it costs us a bit more money to do that than it does a shotgun.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That's absolutely right. They don't have to shoot. Although later they will change the bazookoids and then they just have like a shooting effect. They don't have those. They don't have those animated
floating blue balls. Yeah.
On the topic of firearms, it is really weird that the android comes on with like a hunting rifle or shot.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look. He looks so future military
Like RoboCop from the most recent version.
Yeah, it feels like he should be holding something like the bazookoid that slings on it. But he's got a thing with even like a green webbed strap that looks like something you would have in, I don't know, a boarding school skeet shooting clay pigeon class. Like, it doesn't look cool. Lister's actually has the cool looking firearm with the little sawed off thing, but the droid just has, does that make sense? It just looks like something I imagine someone with like the flat caps and the sports coat with the elbows and the like.
Yeah, I obviously haven't paid any attention to it because I have no idea what you're talking about now.
I used to do, because I used to work in effects and I used to do guns for run guns for films. That sounds terrible, run guns. But I used to, safely transport and do like both the fake firearms and then the ones that would actually fire blanks and stuff. I wish I could find Hudson 10. Is that its name?
Yes, with a Z, Hudson 10. Which
of course I guess is the other Aliens reference.
Maybe. I never even noticed that.
So I'm gonna see if I can like see the images and see if I can share it with you.
Yeah, I've had a look. None of the images I could find on Google showed that. Because
later they will have androids and stuff that have very Star Trek looking futuristic guns, but I can't. I'm having a tough time finding the picture because he kind of has it off frame and then he picks it up and it just yeah, there's other like ones that show up that are totally like total sci-fi looking. And this one just doesn't look it. He's always holding it low. So you only kind of see it when he racks it. And it's got this, everybody listening to the UK is like, of course the American knows all about the fire.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, it's just one of those things that, had the company I've been working on this show and like, we need a so-and-so, we'd be like, oh, well, it's set in the future. So why don't we just get a modern thing and we'll tack a bunch of crap on it and it'll look. And it just looks weird to me because it just looks like something my grandpa would have gone dove hunting with is what it looks like.
It should have been a phased plasma rifle in a 40-watt range.
Anything. It's just like you've got these bazookoids, like, I don't know. It's just odd. It's odd to me. It's so easy to make a sci-fi looking weapon. Although, to be fair, I don't know if this is in the trivia you pulled, but he wasn't going to make an appearance. It was a very last minute script ad.
Okay.
To have the Hudson 10 character show up.
Interesting.
So that might be why. And that's why that's what they had laying around and they'd already spent the money on the Lister one. But anywho, so
yeah,
sorry, that was my weird, hey, wait a minute. This looks strange to me. He looks so cool. Why does he have a grandpa looking bird rifle thing?
As I say, I never even noticed it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, you work the movies stuff
of course.
Enough that you sometimes I can't cut my brain off. Like I'm not like to where I see I'm like, oh, interesting. This is the first time Nick Fury doesn't have an M&P pistol. Right. It's a like, you know what I mean? Like I just notice that stuff because you work on those things enough and they keep using the same things over and over.
Of course. I suppose we better you alluded to it at the end of the last episode, but this is the first mention that we get of Lister being abandoned underneath a pool table in a pub.
Yes. So we have mentioned that in this, as in every series, there's usually been a little thing that's been said that's like, oh, that's interesting. This will show back up. And sometimes, as I said in the previous episode of this, Crichton makes a reference to visiting the grassy knoll in the 60s in Texas. Well, but that feels like hey, we have an idea for a show. Remember, he said that thing back there. This one feels more like an intentional Easter egg, where we find out from Lister that, he was abandoned and, his parents, he was found in a box under a pool table in a pool hall. Which of course, I never found out why is then undercut by.
Yes, we're basically saying that your parents were brother and sister and had an illicit affair.
That's why they dropped you off. And instead, this will be a thing that comes, but it comes. I want to say it comes like 4 series later, something like that.
Is it that long?
Yeah, so it's still further out than I realized it being. Okay. Finding out what that's about, and that's cool. So I don't know if that was an intentional thing that, hey, this is something we can come back to later, or if later they just like, oh, we got this idea because of this thing he said that we can do. But yeah, interesting. I was convinced it was the Time Slides episode and not this one.
I was when we talked about it, or like when we were talking about what the next episodes were before Time Slides, and I was like, is this under a pool table? And you were like, maybe. And obviously it wasn't. It was the next one. Interesting. Because I remember an episode moving forward where he visits that pool hall or pub or whatever it was with the pool table. I have a vague memory in my head of that actually happening. But again, like I've said, after this series, it's the vague memories of anything. I couldn't tell you specifically. Like looking ahead in our notes at what the next episode we're going to be covering in, from the title, not a clue.
I love Drunk Rimmer getting to a joke in this, discovering a joke as he's talking when he's like, you're the forbidden fruit of their passion. You're their forbidden passion fruit.
He does that a lot, Rimmer, and I love those jokes. They're brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I love that he gets the clever British language joke. Well, I don't know what that thing that we don't do in America, but you guys, the
it's
playing,
a very, like the way it's a very British thing.
Yeah, the playing with words and stuff, and I love that. It's one of the things that cut me on to British sitcoms and humor early on as a kid. I just loved that, and then of course, getting into books like Douglas Adams, and it's just full of that kind of stuff of the ships floated in the Earth's atmosphere much in the way bricks don't. Whatever you want to call that kind of stuff. God, I love it. It's so good.
There's a word used in this episode that isn't used in the way it's used, like, ever, honestly, and I find it hilarious. So we go way, way back to when Lister is working on the Marilyn Monroe robot, and Kat comes in. I've got the script up here because I need to do it justice. So he says, okay, the soup's made, Holly's working on the juice, Goalpost Head is working on the invitations. Hey, what's this? Build it yourself Marilyn Monroe droid. With just a screwdriver and a hot tub of glue, you can construct an exact replica of the famous actress in under 2 minutes. And Lister said, it's a load of honk, man. And I don't know, I've never used the word honk of like crap. It's a load of honk, and I just find it funny, and I don't know why. It's one of those where it felt like he had a script, but he forgot what the word was he was supposed to use, so he just substituted it with the first thing that came into his head. And it just makes me laugh. It's a lot of honk, man. Right. I don't know.
And my brain goes, is that something you guys say? I love when I come across those and you're like, no, it's not. No. I don't know what that's from.
No, because if we use the word honk, it generally means stink. Like, oh my God, you honk. You stink. That's how we would use that word. That's why it's a weird usage of the word in that context.
I've just learned something.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I do love and it must be why they dropped the Star Trek reference in here. But the climax of this episode is such a Star Trek thing that the android is gonna kill him.
Yes.
Grabs him. And then, isn't this a Star Trek? I feel like it's from a classic episode of you screw the logic up of the AI. And so when he says, there's
like
no
existential crisis,
silicone heaven, it's a silicone heaven. It's a lie. Where do all the calculators go? But must. I also love they give the sound effects of his eyes blinking and stuff to make him sound like he's a
it's like RoboCop at that point, because when he moves his arms and his head and stuff, he's like, which
is funny because they give the justification of, you must have noticed your android is very ugly, and so that's why this android is going to have like a more realistic face. But then why does he move more robotic? It's kind of like the Terminator. Screw it, we're going to do it.
Yeah. That's right.
But it gives him the logic thing of like, it does not compute because of what happens. And I love the whole, like, Crichton, well, I lied to him, but he doesn't know I was lying, which I think someone might have pointed out. Maybe it was a trivia thing I read or whatever, but like, he has to get lessons from Lister to lie, But because this is an artificial life form, maybe he can just lie to it.
Yes.
But he can't just lie to Rimmer or
a
Cat
human.
or Lister. Like, and Lister's trying to teach him how to do it later, which is one of my favorite gags in the show.
Shmeek.
What a shmeek.
Yeah.
God, I love that.
Everyone remembers that section. I couldn't tell you what episode
it's so good
in,
that he does it later episodes without a reference back. He just does it that way, and people laugh at it. But the ending is it's so good. I do think it's undercut a little bit by the weird performance of the Hudson 10.
Yeah.
But a very Star Trek episode.
It's interesting that you say that he wasn't supposed to have appeared. I wonder what the end of this episode was supposed to be then, without the Hudson 10 actually appearing.
Yeah, I wonder that too. I wonder if it was simple as like, wait, you don't have to cut yourself off? Well, no. And they just like, I don't know. They tell the ship, you got the wrong ship. I don't know.
He's on the Nova 5. Yeah, I don't know. It would be weird. No, he's not here. Oh, okay then.
But it definitely, you can go, you can see like it wasn't planned in the sense of it's in one hallway.
Yeah.
And you feel like if you were going to plan on doing this, he might have shown up a little earlier and you'd have had some fun in the ship. Yeah,
it does feel like you say that it's like, oh crap, we need to quickly film this end section. Yeah, that's true.
I do love him scanning Terminator style all the characters. I mean, like Rimmer, hologram, a viable target, cat, feline, Felix, whatever. He gives like the scientific name for a feline person.
Felix,
not sapien. Human. Rimmer or Lister, barely human.
Barely human.
What the hell?
Viable. Yeah. Yeah. We do like leaning on. So, like, obviously, the two writers were quite obvious, and the director, I guess, quite obviously James Cameron fans, because there's a lot of references to like Terminator and Aliens and stuff in there, whether intentionally or not. But there's definitely a few there, because it was the same with the heat-seeking bazookoids from Polymorph, that they were scanning the same way the Terminator does as well.
Well, and something that is going to be more prominent in future episodes, even though Hudson 10 doesn't show up to the end, but him and the Polymorph, villains might be the wrong term, but the actual villains start to show up like that. Okay. Where you have an adversary, while they may not be villains, but like, I wouldn't call the alien a villain, but like it is the antagonist, obviously. It's not like it's a bad guy. It's just an animal, right?
Yeah, it's just doing what it's programmed to do, basically.
But still, there's your quote unquote bad guy for your film. And the Polymorph, the Hudson, even the threat of the Hudson 10 like is hanging over things. So it and that becomes a thing that comes up more. Like, and I remember in my head memorable villains and things like that they will have in the show that are really good. So it does start, you can kind of see where this is going. And then for me, my dwarf really feels like 4, 5, and 6. I think we'll see what I say in rewatch. So I'm very excited to turn the page and holly hop over to that section of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, because like I say, with you saying that my Red Dwarf is series 1 and 2, 100%.
So what did you rate this episode?
So I gave this a 7 as well.
Man, we are lockstep. Usually I did 7 as well, which I hope raises how good my 7 for the previous episode, because I really did not think it was bad. I wrote 7 on this because of what I just said, which is I'm writing 7 because I know what's coming and how much I love some things that are coming. And I feel like if I call this 8, it'll make me have to order it after I watch it. This is another solid 7. I am so thankful this episode exists for the foundation of new Crichton in the sense of like this search for meaning and purpose and who he is. I enjoy that because it becomes fundamental to the Crichton moving forward.
It's interesting because you're looking at this episode as a 7 because of what it's setting up moving forward. I gave this a 7 for how much it gave me series 1 and 2 vibes again.
Oh, that's funny. Well,
which is interesting, isn't it?
I agree. I mean, I don't disagree with that, though. I do think like it does have a more self-contained thing. It does feel like the kind of story that could have happened, well, like you said with Queeg, right? Like,
yeah, they did it. They've basically done it. It's just with a different character.
Yeah, but it's this one is probably more identifiable. There's something about having a person walking around and being, but I do love, we don't get a sincere moment from Hadley like we do, I feel like, as much from Crichton's, like, what I did last night would equate to fun. It's not enough. Like, that moment's actually great. It's very Data from Star Trek, when the whole Measure of a Man episode where they're like, this isn't your property. We can't consider it that. This is more than that. You know, and obviously it's a very different thing. Data is a very different kind of android in the science fiction world than Crichton is. But I love that moment. It's not enough. I want more.
I'm wondering now if they thought when they were writing this episode that they were potentially playing off people's memory of Queeg and going, is this Crichton having a bit of fun? Is this android not really coming? Is it just like April Fool? Is it? Are we doing that again? I wonder if they hoped people would perceive it that way, especially with the video being hosted by the actual person who is Crichton. I wonder if that was their intention.
Well, and that would explain like why they maybe went, we have to bring the Hudson 10 in and do this ending.
Maybe. That makes sense now. Yeah, because otherwise they think, we don't want people to think that way, that it's just going to be another cop-out of like, April Fool. I'm not really going anywhere.
Don't worry, this thing's not programmed to hurt humans. And you're like, Rimmer in the back, like, I'll cover the back, like, oh.
It's still a hologram, though. How can he hurt him?
I know, but I do love that, he can't hurt humans. And Rimmer's like, oh, excuse me, and gets all tough. Like, in his most, the way he walks is the most like, excuse me, but I want to speak to your manager. Like,
yes.
Delivery ever. All right, mulatto, which we haven't heard in a while.
No.
And I love the rack of Grandpa's hunting rifle pointed at Rimmer, which I don't know what that even does. And then Rimmer's like, well, it's been a while since I've done that
in a while. Yeah.
And I'm like, do holograms pee their pants?
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's weird. Again, just for the joke, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's gosh, what a perfect cast Chris Berry is. He's
brilliant. Yeah.
So good at doing this character. I mean, like, it's his ability to be so broad, but completely believable at the same time.
Yeah.
It's funny we mentioned in the previous episode that Graham Chapman was originally supposed to be one of the performers, because Chris Berry reminds me a bit of Graham Chapman in the sense that Graham Chapman's funniest ability to me was like when he did Holy Grail, he treated it like he was in Henry V when he played King Arthur, right?
Yeah.
It was so serious. It's like I think of like Gene Wilder and the Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles. He is in a real Western and he plays it so serious, and that's what makes it be funny. And these moments like this, Chris Berry is just so good at playing ridiculous, so real. It's so good.
Everyone under the age of 30 who's listening to this podcast now is going, Blazing Saddles? Just to reference, that is a film that none of you will ever see ever again.
It's for sale right now on Apple TV for $4.99, the 4K version.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I am genuinely surprised that is still available to buy.
Oh, are you kidding? Classic Mel Brooks. It's like
I'm sure it is, but it's incredibly... offensive? It was offensive then. It's way worse now.
But it's offensive. Its offensiveness is a tool to point out how stupid it is to think that way.
I'm sure, but there are episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia that you cannot watch anywhere now because of how offensive they are.
This is true. This is true.
And they aren't that bad. Comparing it to something like Blazing Saddles, which from start to finish is, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's hilarious, but yeah.
I know. I'm like, let me see if can I reference anything newer? No, everything's like old that I just referenced.
Yeah.
But I do love, man, Chris Berry's ability just to play something so real, it's so dumb, is just fantastic. Like, and you can just picture his Rimmer always being like, excuse me, I need to talk to you about the hair that's in my soup or whatever. Like,
he feels like one of those actors, and I know he isn't, but it's like when you find out about Leslie Nielsen, that Leslie Nielsen was like a Shakespearean actor and then fell into comedy, and he's just so good at it. If you found that out about Chris Barry, you could kind of see it as well. That just found his way into comedy. I think you see him become a better actor as the show goes by far. Because in the beginning, I'm only using my voice to be funny, which feels like it comes out of being a guy known for doing impersonations. Yeah.
And it's even funny when he did the Crichton impersonation, in this episode, it feels more genuine than before. It would always just kind of feel like he can do this, so we should do it.
Yes, whereas this it fit the story rather than just because I can do it.
Because you can almost picture Rimmer being like, this friggin' guy that's part of the crew now. God, he makes me crazy. Oh, and he just loves Lister. Like, like I got another one of those. Like you can just kind of feel it. Well, I love that we both approached a 7 out of different angles.
Yeah, I love it. And that's what I love about what we're doing. We both come at these from a different angle, and I think it's what's making it interesting for me. I don't know whether everyone listening finds it as interesting as I do.
I do. Hey, I had a podcast going on since 2016. I don't know how many episodes my wife has listened to above the first one. And it's funny. She listens to this. She loves this. She's like, I can't wait to hear what Lee has to say about yada yada.
Oh God. Yes. Well, my other podcast, my wife is on it with me, and she barely even listens when we're recording. Certainly doesn't afterwards.
Oh, I hope she listens to this episode just for that moment.
I don't think my other 2 co-hosts listen to me either, but there you go.
Amazing. Well, I mean, I ain't topping that. I guess that's the end of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. And the end of season 3, series 3. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the end of series 3. We move on to series 4, where again, it's kind of 4 through 6 feel like they kind of live in a pocket together with me. And I feel like 1 and 2 live in a pocket, and series 3 is very much an in-between both kind of thing. So we'll see if I still think that way as we do this rewatch.
I'm excited because I couldn't tell you, other than obviously I've got it in the show notes, what the next episode's going to be. I couldn't tell you a single episode moving forward.
I'm very excited
in this next series. I'm going to look them up now, actually.
I'm very excited about them. Well, that does in fact bring us to the end of this podcast. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Dwarf Memory, and Twitter at Dwarf_Memory for all the show updates.
Yeah, please subscribe, rate and review the show wherever you can, and email us your comments and thoughts to dwarfmemory@gmail.com.
The next episode we'll be discussing will be Series 4, Episode 1, Camille. So make sure to watch before you listen to that episode. But our next episode is going to be looking back at our top 5 episodes so far. Oh, I forgot we were doing that.
Yeah, that's going to be over the holidays. We will get together. I'm interested because I'm thinking about this. It might be a bad idea. I'm actually thinking about rewatching all of the episodes we've watched so far, so I can just stick them on at work and it's fine. It doesn't affect my day. I can just bang them on at work and watch them that way. I mean, I think I have a good idea what my number 1 is at this point.
Well, we have some snow coming in, so I may be kind of hold up for a day or two.
That'll be nice.
That's perfect. That sounds like a great idea. I'll absolutely do that.
I think, like I said, my number 1's dead easy. It's then working the 2, 3, 4, and 5 down. And then, like we say, we talked about this, haven't we? So moving forward, at the end of every series now, we will revisit at the end our top 5s and see if any of that. So basically, we're going to do our top 5s after this comes out. Then when we finish series 4... at the end of that, we will go back through and go, have any of Series 4 episodes made it into your top 5? And do that moving forward. So by the end of all of it, we will have a definitive top 5 episodes of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, we're going to have to make a living Google document with our lists on them. Yeah, I love that. This is going to be a blast.
Cool. What happened?
He's an android. His brain couldn't handle the concept of there being no silicone heaven.
And so how come yours can?
Well, I knew something he didn't.
What?
I knew I was lying. No silicone heaven. Preposterous. Where would all the calculators go?